Welcome back to the Nashville Predators GM mode. So, this originally should have been the final two rounds of the playoffs. However, the final two rounds of the playoffs has already occurred. I lost the footage for it, I guess, when I was switching over to my new computer. It just didn't transfer. I have all the other episodes ready for the NHL week, but I realized that I was missing the final playoff episode. So this is going to be kind of a playoff recap / wrap-up episode, and this will be the final episode of the Predators GM mode, where we're going to be going over the current players we have, some of the players that we've had before, and what they have done in the time since since they have not been on our team. So I didn't plan any of that out ahead, so it's kind of be off the cuff, one take, no preparation done whatsoever. So so let's go over the entire playoffs. First round, we beat Vancouver 7 games, okay, right there, and then we moved on to, or was it 6? No, it was 7. In a very close game at the end. We went on to absolutely annihilate Chicago. They only scored 2 goals in one game of the entire series out of 5. So they definitely were not having a fun time going up against Semyon Varlamov. The next round was a good situation with Semyon Varlamov again. We won the first 3 games, 2 goals, shutout. And then the next game, we lost 4-1 in Calgary, but we came right back with a shutout, and we won in 5 games to secure our third ticket to the Stanley Cup Finals. Yeah, our third trip to the Stanley Cup Finals in 7 years, where we would face the Ottawa Senators. It was going to be Ottawa or Washington, and again, goaltending was too good. 1-0, 3-2, 2-0, and then capped it off in the final game, a Stanley Cup Finals sweep to finish this GM mode. 7-2 win. So, we won the Stanley Cup. We only lost 2 games in the last 3 rounds. Our toughest series was in the first round against Vancouver, who only won 44 games. Chicago won 41 as well. Calgary won 45, and Ottawa won, I believe, also. No, they won 43. I thought they won like 50, but that might have been last year. So our toughest series was the first round against Vancouver. Calgary could have put up more of a fight, but they were missing Sean Monahan with a concussion, and their wingers were not very good producers outside of Johnny Gaudreau, who had like 3 goals in that round, but I believe he was the only one to score. I think he scored 1 in every game, but I'm not 100% sure. So we already went over playoff stats, so let's go through the roster and try and recall how they got here. I can't look at certain player stats like Pekka Rinne because he retired. Mike Fisher, I believe, is in that same boat, but we'll try and do like some of the other ones that are still possibly around, like James Neal and everyone's favorite. I can't remember, but he was on Calgary as well, so we'll go look at them. So, as we finish off, we have Philip Forsberg, who's been with us all 7 years. We signed him to that long-term contract at the very beginning of the GM mode that would have taken him through year 9 at only $5 million. Great player, ended up being a 90 overall. 4.5-star shooting, 5-star puck skills, excellent two-way player, 90 defensive awareness, 4.5-star physical, great skater. He was just an all-around great player, and he definitely was our best forward over that time period. Turned out consistent years in terms of assists. He had this one really good year where he scored 36 goals. Never quite did that much again, but he has been a consistent 65-point guy outside of this 1 year. And I'm very happy with that, especially considering his two-way game. He's been a prominent penalty killer for us this entire GM. The next player, Jamie Benn, we only had him for 1 year. He had 70 points, 25 goals. Definitely not what I really expected out of him, but he was a plus 44. Another thing about Forsberg is he was a consistent plus 22, even when he had bad offensive years. And he was a plus 43 this year as well, with that top line being outstanding. And then, of course, there was Shea Weber, captain. This was a down year from his past years, however. He has continued an excellent career into his mid-30s, as this would go back to his age 31 season. He's had some of the best years of his career point-wise, and this was his career year in this GM. 57 points, a plus 24, and he had that at age 34 season, and he had 46 points this year. He was a plus 14, And he's still throwing the body, too. It doesn't say hits here. But we can assume from his 105 penalty minutes, he was everywhere on the ice. Definitely happy to have been able to have Shea Weber in one of my GM modes. Is definitely a treat. Ekhem Nold, we never got to see what he could truly be. We only had 2 years with him, and he missed 10 games this year. He was on pace for a career year through most of the year, and he's definitely going to be a great defenseman for years to come offensively. Hopefully he can be the next Erik Karlsson. We'll look at his attributes here. 5-star shot, decent passing too. He's an excellent defensive player. Look at that, 96 shot blocking, so he can really contribute on both ends of the ice. And I accidentally backed out instead of going back to what I wanted to. So here's Matt Duchene, who is definitely probably the biggest dud of a trade that we ever made. Besides this 1 year we led our team in points, he was not very good. He actually was a 91 that year too, and the year before he had almost 100. So with Nashville he was definitely crashed and burned. And he is still a good point producer. He is at 769 and 906, but I think if he was with Colorado still, it would be looking a lot better. And I'm just going to do regular season. I'm not going to do playoff stats because that's kind of a crapshoot anyway. So Matt Duchene, definitely a disappointment, but at the same time, he led our team in points twice during a really bad production year, and he had the most goals on our team twice in that period too. So, and he was a good, it won't say here, but he was our best face-off person for the entire time he was here. He was like a 58% face-off guy, which is really good for the simulation in this game. Next player, Sean Day, really just a defensive force. He was a rookie this year anyway, already an 87 overall, 11 goals, 8 assists. He's picked in the middle of the first round. It's definitely a solid pick, but definitely won't last in the middle of the round next time he's drafted in my next GM mode. Seth Jones, solid guy. He's played 3 years that were to start out this GM, and then he had a breakout year of 45 points the year before this one. After his fourth season was his breakout year, and then after that he was a consistent producer, 35 points in back-to-back years, and then 40-plus points in back-to-back years here too, including a career-high 11 goals right there. Definitely going to be a solid defenseman for years to come, and an 87 overall. Debatably a top 2, but let's move on. Tyler Johnson acquired in the Mike Ribeiro trade for both him and Nikita Kucherov. Just a solid player throughout all of this. I think he was almost a point-per-game player that 1 year where our stats were absolutely jacked up. And the third line had each 50 points, and the second line was our best line. And he's just always been a good player. His face-off percentage is kind of lackluster, but he's been a solid two-way player. He's in the same boat as Philip Forsberg, where he's been able to contribute on the power play, penalty kill, and 5-on-5, and put up 25-plus goals these 2 years. And then he turned into more of the assist man the last couple years playing. I think that was because we put him back on a line with Kucherov these last 2 years too, where he wasn't before. Kucherov was on the top line these 2 years where he was a goal scorer. And then we put him back with Kucherov after putting Colin Wilson and J.B. Benn on the top line respectively for each of those years. Nikita Kucherov's another one where he had 2 really good years on the top line, and then his overall dipped from 89 to 86, and we put him back on the second line where he was still a solid contributor, but not a point-per-game player like he was in those 2 years. Definitely one of the more weird stories of this entire GM, but we can hang our hat on it. He was still a very good producer for us, and that second line always produced in the playoffs. Colin Wilson became our David Backes. David Backes was always the 20-point guy with a really good plus-minus and a great physical presence for the penalty kill and stuff like that. Not much to say about him. Edmondson was a good defensive defenseman, had around 15 points plus 20 every year. Travis Konecny was our first year's draft pick. Definitely not ever turned into anything I expected of him, but he was the third best player on that line, and he still put up almost 40 points in each of his first 2 NHL seasons. So I'm happy. And I said I wasn't going to focus on the playoffs, but this last playoff run he was absolutely lit. He had almost double-digit goals. I didn't show playoff stats actually because I showed it in the last episode. It got lost. So I'll show that again. Craig Smith, solid 30 to 35 point guy. Besides that 1 year when he had 50 points. Definitely not as good in this game as he is in real life, but he's still a solid player for us, and he was our third line center through his entire GM mode, and was always a plus guy, and put up a solid point total, so I'm happy with that. MacArthur, defensive defenseman, only played a couple seasons, but him and Edmondson were very formidable. Or him and, was it Edmondson? Yeah, it was him and Edmondson were a very formidable tandem. Hoffman, we only got this last year. We had him this year, I believe, one of these 2 years as well. Definitely not as good as I wanted him to be, but I guess solid. Devontae Smith-Pelly, fourth liner, put up 20 points each year we had him. Solid guy to have, and brings a very physical presence as a power forward. Chase Son, again, depth player, had almost 20 points this year. Not really much to harp on with him. Yuri Sekach was our healthy scratch each of these last, 3 years, including this year, and he was solid all the years. He had really good point totals when he did play, besides 1 year when he had 3 and 9. He had 4 and 8 this year, 8 and 11 this year, and 14 and 26 that year. Solid, healthy scratch. Chaddock was our fourth line center this year, had 20 points plus 1. I would like to see him get a little better and see what he could have done for that fourth line, but again, Valatenko was our healthy scratch defenseman. He put up 6 points with a plus 2, so that's nice to see from him. And that's just depth, guys. So we will go into the goaltending aspect, where we have Varlamov, who's dropped down to an 88 overall now. Probably just listed as a starter, but he had Vezina caliber seasons each of the last 4 years. And, 2.24, 2.13, 2.22. He was 2.5 that year, but his save percentage, that was the year that he was bad and then got really good at the end. And then his save percentage each of the last 3 years has been 9.25, on average. And he had 10 shutouts those 2 years. So, very happy with the production from him. And then Nedved was going to be the wave of the future. He had a shutout in his first career appearance, and then he's still technically be classed as a rookie next year. He went 9-9 in his first full season of an NHL backup experience with a 1.92 goals against 9.34 save and 4 shutouts out of his 9 wins. 4 of them were shutouts, so he has a bright future ahead of him. And sadly, we can't see it, but it's time to hang up this GM mode. We've been a little accomplished what we wanted, and it's definitely run its course. And then we had Ammonrud, who would have probably turned into the backup next year after Varlamov was probably not retained, depending, obviously. And what else is there to really... Alright, so let's try and find, remember where some of our former players are. So I know Dallas has Colin Wilson. Let's see what he did for them and for us. Colin Wilson was always a solid second or first line player for us, depending on the year. He'd play first line, he'd play second line center. He got really good, had an excellent shot, excellent puck skills, and he was a very good body checker as well, with decent defense too. Another great two-way player. He had 54 points this year for Dallas on a bad Dallas team with minus 17, so that's a pretty good production still. And then last year for us, he had 63 points playing that top line wing spot, and then the year before that, he had 55 playing second line wing, and then the year before that, he had second line wing time as well. So him and Tyler Johnson definitely had very similar stats those 2 years when they were playing left and right, or when they were playing center, and he was playing right wing. Colin Wilson was playing right wing, and Tyler Johnson was playing center. And I believe he was a good playoff guy as well. Decent, not super great. And who else is there? Yarncroke, that's his name. He's on Calgary. So he was definitely the first prospect to really bust in this. That was not the way I wanted to go. Definitely the first prospect to bust in this. He was an 81. I played him on the second line for an entire year, and he did not progress. So we dealt him along with Craig Anderson, who was traded to us for just a second-round pick, I believe, for Kari Ramo and a pick that eventually turned into Akeem Nold, I'm pretty sure, or Nedved. I think it turned into Nedved eventually. He had 42 points for the Flames this year. He had 34 and 45 that year. So he turned into a solid NHL player. 20 point or 20 goal, 20 assist guy for the Flames. But it was the time to get rid of him, and it definitely, I believe, worked out in our favor. In the end, we'll have had the better player than they got out of it. So let's see if I just quickly recognize. Oh, Colorado. So Pecorine retired, but they signed Sergei Bobrovsky upon his retirement, and they went all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals and lost. Um, and So good career to Pecorine. Unfortunately, the ending was not very good, as he ended on a bad team. So Neil spent his last few years after we traded him. He played a couple of good years for us, but it was time to shake up the team. He ended up playing the last couple of years with Gabriel Landeskog and Nathan MacKinnon on that top line. So let's see what he did for the Colorado Avalanche in his last 4 years. Had a rough year this year, dealing with injuries. Scored 20 goals still, and this year he scored almost 20 goals as well in a comeback from injury. The same kind of situation that year. He's been a solid 60-point guy when he plays a full season, but definitely I think we got a slightly better deal out of that. And even though Duchesne ended up kind of being a dud, and for all of them, I've had 3 Vezina caliber seasons, so I definitely think it was a good trade for both sides, though, still, because they got that veteran goaltender that they needed, as well as that right-wing sniper, because they had that depth at center. So I think it worked out for both teams. However, just in the long run, Colorado didn't end up with the greatest of luck team-wise. It was a similar swap of players, though. It was just at spots that were more needed, and they have a lot of great wingers on this team now. If they could have figured it out when they still had Duchesne, maybe they could have made a run at the Stanley Cup. Let's see if there's anyone else that's recognizable. We did Dallas already, Detroit, Edmonton, Florida, LA. No, I don't think that... No, we didn't trade for any actual players in that trade. Okay. Jersey, Islanders, Rangers. The Rangers have Roman Josi, right? Yeah, they have Roman Josi somewhere on here, I thought. I'm just on forwards. Yeah, they have Roman Josi. 86 overall, 30 years old, signed as a free agent on a 3-year, $5.44 million contract. We let him walk in favor of Sean Day, moving up onto the NHL squad, and other guy moving up. He was a solid 40-point guy for us even this year when he was out for 12 games, or 13 games. He was a solid 40-point guy, and he actually did the same kind of thing for the Rangers this year. It just sucks that the Rangers are not a very good team this year and did not do anything in the playoffs, if they even made it. But he was a solid guy, and I'm definitely happy to have had his service at some point. I want to find Cody Franzen as well, wherever he is. I don't remember where he signed, so this might take a little while, but we will get there eventually. Wow, they're really bad in St. Louis, but that's good news for us. Vancouver get him? No? Alright, we're gonna have to make a circle again then. Yeah, because I can't find where he is right now. Another Trouba. No. If I can't find him this time around, I'm just gonna say screw it. I know he's like an 86 overall, so he should be easy to find. Stupid Ville Polka. I don't even remember where he signed. Edmonton, maybe? No. Oh yeah, he did sign in Edmonton. Alright, so he's an 85 overall, 33 years old, making a lot of money. He was always a really good player for us. These 2 seasons right here, he had over 50 points for us each year, scored 10 goals. I definitely overvalued him in this because of the amount that they gave up at the time to acquire him. It was a first-round pick and a really good prospect. They traded to get Cody Franz. That's why I made him so good. But definitely produced for us a much higher clip than he did in real life for the Predators in his second go-round with them. 57 points for the Oilers this last year, so he's definitely still producing even in his advanced age. He's still good offensively and pretty decent defensively despite this first year with the Oilers. But again, the Oilers were a bad team, so I don't know if there's anyone else really of note to actually look at that was on our team. So we're going to look at team success, and then we're going to wrap this up. So I've showed this screen quite a few times already, and I actually don't know if I can get to it right now. Yeah, we can. Alright, so this first year we went to the Stanley Cup Finals. In my original Stanley Cup Final prediction came to light, where it was Nashville and the Rangers. We had the most wins of any season in this GM mode that year, besides this last year where we actually won the Stanley Cup. We had 239 goals for, 188 against. We still never got to that point of allowing that many or allowing that few goals. However, we definitely scored more goals than this a couple times, especially this year when we had 260 goals the year that everyone was scoring like crazy, even though the defense wasn't super great that year. And this year, we got bounced in the first round. After barely making the playoffs, we got absolutely torn apart by Anaheim. After winning the first game, we lost like 5-1, 5-1, like 7-3. Like, just not a good series for our team. And big changes were made after that when we got Duchesne and Varlamov. Varlamov was not a very good goalie in these first couple seasons with us. He had an okay year both of these years. I think he had a bad year this year. He had like a 288 goals against, like a 909 save. Because at the time he was just a starter. He wasn't quite an elite goalie yet. But this was definitely a bounce back year. We made it to the Western Conference Finals, where we faced off against the defending Stanley Cup champion San Jose Sharks, who also won the Stanley Cup that year. Then this year we finally made it back to the Western Conference Finals and beat San Jose on the wings of everyone deciding they wanted to score as much as possible. It might have been actually this year that happened. I don't remember. No, I think it was this year because Duchesne had an okay first year with it. No, I don't remember. One of these 2 years. But we won the Stanley Cup after beating the San Jose Sharks. And then our defense just continued to get better. Our goal scoring never quite reached the peak that it did in those 2 years. But we still were a good team, won 49 games that year, and basically a repeat of the year before with slightly less points. 240 goals, less than 200 against, and we lost in the first round. I believe it was to Chicago. And here, we won 48 games this year, 1 win, disimprovement, but we also picked up an extra point. Only allowed 189 goals the entire year. Not as good as our first year, but still enough to lead the league. And we scored more goals by 3. And we were bounced in the third round. And then this year, 51 wins, our best season so far, 107 points. Our best season since the first season, that is. Not points-wise, but win-wise. 244 goals for, 189 goals against. Arguably just as good as this first year when we didn't quite win the Stanley Cup. But this was our year. Our year to finally capture the second after pretty much dominating the Western Conference. If you consider Chicago a modern-day dynasty based on if you take out this first year, even if you just base it on these 6 years, if you consider Chicago a modern-day dynasty, you can consider this Nashville team a modern-day dynasty. 2 cup wins, 2 additional third-round appearances, and 2 first-round appearances is exactly the stats of the last 6 years before this year of the Chicago Blackhawks since their first Stanley Cup win. They've won 2 Stanley Cups. They've been bounced in the third round by LA twice. I'm pretty sure it was LA both times. Yeah. Trying to think now. Yeah, it was LA both times. They lost in the first round to Vancouver, I believe, both times. This is basically the same thing. And another Stanley Cup appearance on top of that. Definitely dominating the Western Conference. Whoops. The only other 2 teams to even make the Stanley Cup Finals during our time were the San Jose Sharks, and they did it once, they did it twice, rather. But I shouldn't have said it like that. But yeah, we dominated the Western Conference. Yeah, the only other teams to make it to the Western Conference Finals during that time were like the San Jose Sharks. I think the St. Louis Blues made it this first year, and they went up against the San Jose Sharks in the third round. And then the Colorado Avalanche and the Anaheim Ducks, I believe, was this year's. So those were the only other teams. Or was it? It might have been San Jose again, to be completely honest, against Colorado, but I'm not sure. Anyway, that wraps up this Nashville Predators to be a GM. This is the first time I've really done an in-depth NHL series. And hopefully you guys enjoy the Columbus Blue Jackets one that should start uploading as soon as this one is, this final episode of the Nashville Predators is posted. I want to thank all you guys that tuned in the entire time for watching, and I will see you guys later.